I love F-Zero, and probably you too, if you are watching this video. For most people, F-Zero means two games, the SNES original that kickstarted the franchise in 1990 and F-Zero GX, the visually stunning GameCube masterpiece that pushed the series to its absolute limit. Yes, I know the fantastic F-Zero X on the Nintendo 64 is existing too, but tucked quietly in between those eras was another chapter, one that unfolded on a much smaller screen. The Game Boy Advance hosted not one, but 3 F-Zero games. Despite being handheld titles, they carried the same intensity, speed, and risk as their console counterparts. This was the very first time when you could take F-Zero with you to play anywhere. Another great example why we love handhelds. F-Zero Maximum Velocity, F-Zero GP Legend, and F-Zero Climax, 3 games that showed the evolution of the series in handheld form. And if you ask me, they still hold up incredibly well even today. The year was 2001. The Game Boy Advance had just launched, a massive leap forward from the old Game Boy Color. Nintendo needed a lineup that could sell the system's power Mode 7 style graphics, 32-bit processing, and near SNES quality visuals. F-Zero Maximum Velocity, developed by ND Cube, a studio partially owned by Nintendo, this was one of the system launch titles, and it had one job: make your tiny handheld screen feel like a rocket cockpit. I have a personal memory here. When I bought my Game Boy Advance together with F-Zero Maximum Velocity, I remember I went outside the shop in the mall, sat down on a bench, put the batteries and the cartridge into the GBA, and wow, I was genuinely shocked. How is this possible on a handheld? I remember I called my friend and telling him, "You're not gonna believe this, how cool this looks like." The first thing what you can notice is that there is no Blue Falcon in the ship roster, as rather than following the story of Captain Falcon, Nintendo made a bold decision to set this game far into the future. The events of the original F-Zero had become a legend, a distant memory. Now, a new generation of pilots race across the galaxy. It gave the game a fresh identity, though for longtime fans, it also felt strangely isolated. No Falcon, no familiar faces, no recognizable machines, just new racers like Pico, Stella, and Jack Lewins's predecessor zooming across alien landscapes. To be honest, this was my experience too. For me, it felt very different, but it was still pure F-Zero. Gameplay-wise, Maximum Velocity was laser-focused on old-school difficulty. The controls were tight and demanding. Every boost had to be timed perfectly. Bump the wall, and your energy bar would melt faster than you could think. There were no items, no rubber band mechanics, just pure reflex and muscle memory. The learning curve was steep, and mastering each cup felt like conquering a mountain. Reviewers at the time were impressed by how smooth and fast the game ran. IGN called it one of the best handheld races ever made. GameSpot praised its speed, but warned that it's not for the faint of the heart. And it is still true today. It's mechanical perfection, test of skill, and nothing else. In many ways, it felt like Nintendo's way of saying, "Look what this handheld can do." And it worked. F-Zero's future on the GBA was just the beginning. By 2003, things were changing. Nintendo had launched F-Zero GX on the GameCube, a fast, punishing and stylish 3D masterpiece co-developed with Sega's Amusement Vision. But while the console version pushed the boundaries of 3D, Nintendo wanted F-Zero to reach a broader audience, and for that, they turned to a different medium entirely: television. In Japan, F-Zero got a full-blown anime adaptation, F-Zero GP Legend. It reimagined the series with a lighter tone, a new protagonist named Rick Wheeler, and Captain Falcon as a mysterious mentor figure. The show even had a serialized story, turning F-Zero into something closer to a futuristic superhero saga. And of course, it got a tie-in game. Released in late 2003 in Japan and 2004 internationally, F-Zero GP Legend was a true evolution of the GBA formula. The visuals were brighter and cleaner, the camera smoother, and the controls more refined than Maximum Velocity. It felt instantly more approachable, less punishing, more fluid, but still retained that razor-sharp precision at high speeds. What really set it apart was the story mode. For the first time in F-Zero history, you could actually follow the characters through small narrative missions. Each racer had their own mini-campaign with goals like chasing rivals, destroying enemy vehicles, or surviving time challenges. It was surprisingly engaging, especially for a handheld racer. The short cutscenes gave the world more context, and the characters actually had personalities now, something the SNES and Maximum Velocity never really offered. The soundtrack was another highlight. full of energetic remixes of classic F-Zero tunes with that unmistakable GBA crunch that still sounds great today. Let's just listen to it for a bit.
Goal! Congratulations!
Critics received GP Legend warmly. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was a confident, stylish follow-up that fixed most of the frustrations from Maximum Velocity. Personally, this one was my favorite games. It feels alive, you get that thrill of speed, but it's framed by a world and story that make it easier to stay invested. It's not just a technical racer anymore, it's F-Zero with heart. Barely a year later, Nintendo and Suzak, the studio behind GP Legend, released one more F-Zero game for the GBA, but this one stayed exclusive to Japan. F-Zero Climax, released in 2004, is not only the final GBA entry, it's the final F-Zero game ever made. Think of it as the definitive edition of the handheld F-Zero formula. It took everything that worked from GP Legend, the refined controls, the story structure, the colorful presentation, and expanded it with new tracks, modes, and features. The most notable addition was the track editor. For the first time in the series, players could design their own custom race courses using a surprisingly deep editing tool. You could place curves, boost pads, obstacles, jumps, and then test your creation instantly. Even better, you could save and share these via link cable. And don't forget that we are talking about a handheld device. It was a glimpse of what F-Zero could evolve into, a community-driven racer years ahead of its time. Climax also featured a robust mission mode with dozens of challenges, more story segments, and a slightly rebalanced difficulty curve. The visuals were sharper than ever, brighter, more colorful, and smoother in motion. The soundtrack was fantastic as always, catchy, high-tempo, GBA renditions that fit perfectly with the game's faster pacing. Unfortunately, Climax never left Japan. There was no Western localization, likely because F-Zero's popularity had started to fade by then. And that's tragic, because Climax represents the peak of F-Zero's 2D design philosophy. It's fast, polished, and bursting with content, the culmination of everything the GBA Trilogy had built towards. It's almost poetic that a game called Climax marked the final chapter of the series. The good news is that it is possible to play the fan-translated ROM nowadays through emulation. When you look back, these three games form a perfect timeline of evolution. Maximum Velocity was the prototype, technical, precise, and unforgiving. GP Legend added personality, accessibility, and story. And Climax refined it all into a future-packed final that still feels modern today. Together they represent a forgotten golden age of handheld racing, one where speed and skill mattered more than fancy graphics or open worlds. After Climax, F-Zero simply vanished. No DS follow-up, no V-entry, no sequel to GX. Just silence. And yet, the DNA of these games still live on, in modern indie racers, in Nintendo's own fast RMX, and in the fans who still boot up their GB emulators for one more lap around Mute City. Playing them again remind me why I love this series. It's pure, honest, brutal. It doesn't hold your hand, it demands that you earn every victory. And even on a tiny handheld screen, F-Zero never lost its sense of speed. Thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this look back at the F-Zero GBA Trilogy. If you would like to see my other F-Zero reviews, I got plenty more. You can find the playlist right here on the screen. I'm glad you stopped by, and I can't wait to see you on the next Battle Quest video.